Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Missing in the Desert podcast. And to all our new listeners, welcome and thank you for joining us. We have been gaining more and more listeners every week, and we're happy for that simply because that means more people are hearing about these cases that may not be heard of otherwise and spreading the word. So that's a very good thing. So without further ado, what I want to do today is I want to give some final thoughts in the case of Krystie Stuart. We have been talking about Krystie now for 3 episodes, and we're at a place now where we need to wrap up on her case. So here are some final thoughts. On March 2nd, 2019, Krystie Stuart was laid to rest in a beautiful memorial ceremony at the First Assembly of God Church in Apple Valley, California. This was an occasion that was very long time coming, actually, after Krystie had been missing for nearly 4 years, only to have her remains found at the end of January 2019. Friends and family shared beautiful memories of Krystie, and a community that followed her story were there in support as well. Krystie brought so many people together through her story, but the memorial, though truly special, was also very bittersweet. It did really emphasize how much of an effect Krystie had on everyone around her. At this time, I only have a brief update on the case itself. But first, I want to give a correction to previous details. I talked about where Krystie's remains were found in relation to where her truck was located and how the area had already been searched multiple times. I recently learned that the aforementioned searches, when Krystie initially went missing, did not extend as far out as where her remains were found. What does this mean for her case? No one is sure. I just want to be sure the information I put out there is factual. As far as an update is concerned, all I know at this point is that the coroner currently has the cause of death as undetermined. This doesn't surprise me, but it still leaves so many unanswered questions in a case that has kept me up at night. I'm going to talk briefly about the possible theories surrounding Krystie's disappearance. The first theory is that Krystie left of her own will and then took her own life due to her mental illness. As I stated in a previous episode, this is an easy theory to gravitate toward considering her history of bipolar disorder and also how people tend to view mental illness as a whole. Combine that with reports from the dentist's office that Krystie was upset because she couldn't get her tooth worked on that day, and that she seemed flustered after thinking she lost her keys, and this first theory may seem solid to some people. I personally see some big drawbacks to this theory. First of all, Krystie's movements that day showed that she was doing things with purpose every step of the way. From going to her dental appointment to picking up her prescription that the dentist had prescribed for her that day, to letting a friend know she was on her way over to spend the night. This just doesn't strike me as the behavior of someone who had plans to take her own life. I also have come to know that she was a very religious person, a devout Christian who loved the Lord and lived by His word. It's not to say that no Christian has ever taken their own life, but this accompanied by her behavior the day she went missing is what leads me away from the first theory. The second theory is that Krystie was the victim of a stranger abduction. This is something no one wants to think about, but there are some strong clues to support this possibility. A couple of these clues relate directly to the bloodhounds that were used to track Krystie's scent. The first occurrence of this was when they tracked her from the dentist's office to the shopping center across the street, into a Bed Bath & Beyond, and then around the side of the building where her scent disappeared. The other occurrence is when her truck was discovered, yet her scent was not discovered at the scene. If we think of Krystie simply walking away from her own vehicle that day in the desert, then one would imagine her scent would be found at the scene. There was also the situation with her cell phone pinging 10 to 15 miles from where her truck was found. I think there are enough inconsistencies to keep this theory in play. Another possibility would be an accidental death. Some theorize that Krystie may have gone out to the Fairview Valley to have some time alone, maybe go out on a hike, etc. Perhaps she had an accident out there that caused her death. That may not be out of the realm of possibility. However, still, her scent should have been picked up by the bloodhounds, one would think, nonetheless. I could go on and list a couple more theories here, but I'd like to hear from our listeners on this. What do you think happened to Krystie Stuart? We're going to be wrapping up our coverage of this case for now, as Krystie's family needs time to heal. Our next episode will tell the story of the next woman to go missing from the high desert. She was a teacher at a local high school by the name of Christina Bastian, who went missing on 11/1/2015, only 8 months after Krystie Stuart disappeared. If you have been following the podcast from the beginning and recall that Krystie had a history of bipolar disorder and had been weaning off of her medication under her doctor's care, and was also due to spend the night at a friend's house the day she went missing, then this case is really going to send up some red flags, maybe. The same can be said for Christina. She had bipolar disorder and had recently weaned off her medication with the help of her doctor as well. She was spending the night at a friend's house when she left after 1 a.m. and has not been seen since. Her truck was later found, and her belongings, as well as her dog, were found at different locations throughout Apple Valley. While authorities were not able to find any concrete connections between the two women and do not believe foul play was involved, the similarities in the cases are hard for people to ignore. We will talk more about the details of Christina's case in the next episode of Missing in the Desert. Stay tuned.